There are moments that stay with a man far longer than they should. Not because something dramatic happened, but because nothing happened at all. A look lasted half a second too long. A smile disappeared before you could decide if it meant anything. Someone younger than you laughed at your joke, then suddenly became quiet, almost like they had caught themselves revealing too much. And ever since then, your mind keeps returning to that moment. Not because you're chasing attention, because you're trying to answer one impossible question. Was it real? Or did I imagine all of it? If you've ever found yourself trapped inside that question, stay with me. And if these quiet conversations about people and emotions help you see yourself more clearly, consider subscribing. There are things we rarely say out loud here, and somehow that's exactly why they matter. What surprises me isn't that men wonder about attraction, it's how quickly they convince themselves they must be wrong. Especially when the other person is younger. I've watched it happen so many times. A man notices warmth in someone's eyes. She finds reasons to keep talking. She remembers tiny details nobody else remembers. She seems comfortable, maybe even excited whenever he's around. And then, his own thoughts become louder than hers ever were. She's probably just being nice. I'm reading too much into this. She couldn't possibly mean it like that. Sometimes he's protecting himself from disappointment. Sometimes he's protecting her from being misunderstood. Both come from a good place. But both can also make him completely blind, because feelings rarely arrive carrying a sign that says, "Hello, this is attraction." Real emotions almost never look that organized. They stumble, they hesitate, they hide behind ordinary conversations. Imagine this. You're finishing a conversation. Everyone else has already walked away. She lingers. Not saying anything important, talking about the weather, about coffee, about something she could have mentioned hours ago. Logically, it makes no sense. Emotionally, it makes perfect sense. Some people stay because leaving feels harder than finding another excuse to remain. That doesn't automatically mean romance. Not at all. Some people simply enjoy feeling emotionally safe with someone. But safety has a strange habit. Spend enough time feeling understood, and sometimes the heart quietly starts asking for more before the mind even notices. That's why these situations become confusing. Neither person fully understands what's happening. Not yet. There's another detail almost nobody pays attention to. When someone begins developing feelings they weren't expecting, they often become less natural, not more. People assume attraction creates confidence. Sometimes it creates awkwardness. Suddenly, the easy conversations disappear. Words get mixed up. Eye contact lasts either far too long or disappears completely. One day she talks effortlessly. The next day she seems distant. Not because the feelings vanished, sometimes because they became impossible to ignore. Human beings are strange like that. The closer something matters, the harder it becomes to act normal around it. You've probably experienced this yourself. You rehearsed a sentence 100 times, only to forget every word the second someone looked into your eyes. Why would we expect anyone else to be different? Now imagine something even quieter. She starts asking questions that have nothing to do with small talk. What made you choose this career? Were you always this calm? What were you like when you were younger? Those aren't questions searching for information. Often, they're searching for a person. She's trying to build a picture, trying to understand the life behind the face. Because attraction isn't always about appearance. Sometimes curiosity arrives first. Feelings follow later. And that's where everything begins to change. Not outside, inside. Because once someone becomes emotionally curious about you, they start noticing things you never intended anyone to notice. The way your voice softens when you talk about family. The tired smile you wear when you're pretending everything's fine. The pause before you answer difficult questions. Little things. Invisible things. The parts of you most people walk past without ever seeing. And when someone starts seeing those, something inside them can quietly shift. They may fight it, question it, even hide it from themselves, which leads to something most men completely misunderstand. Sometimes the strongest feelings don't begin with a confession. Sometimes they begin with distance. Distance has a strange way of making people louder without saying a single word. It sounds impossible until you've lived through it. One day, she's around you all the time. The conversations happen naturally. She laughs before you've even finished the story. She notices when you're unusually quiet. And then, almost overnight, she seems harder to reach. Her replies become shorter. She leaves sooner than she used to. You start wondering if you imagined everything. Most men immediately assume the worst. I must have done something wrong. Maybe, but not always. Sometimes distance isn't rejection. Sometimes it's someone trying to understand feelings that arrived before they were ready for them. That doesn't mean she's secretly in love. It doesn't mean every silence hides affection. Life is more complicated than that. People become distant for dozens of reasons. Stress, family, work, fear, confusion, old wounds they never asked for. Still, there is one pattern I've noticed over the years. When emotions surprise us, we often move closer, then farther away. Almost like touching water to see if it's too cold, then trying again. You see it in friendships, you see it in families, and yes, sometimes you see it in attraction. Because getting emotionally attached can feel exciting, but it also feels dangerous, especially when there are questions with no easy answers. Maybe she's wondering what other people would think. Maybe she's asking herself whether these feelings even make sense. Maybe she's trying to convince herself they're only admiration. Sometimes the biggest conversation isn't happening between two people. It's happening inside one person's mind. Think about those evenings when you've driven home replaying a conversation. Not because anything dramatic happened, because one sentence wouldn't leave you alone. Why did she smile after saying that? Why did she remember something I told her months ago? Your mind starts connecting tiny pieces. Most people assume overthinking belongs only to men. It doesn't. Women can do exactly the same thing, sometimes even more quietly. She might replay your words, wonder whether your compliment meant anything, question why your opinion suddenly matters so much, then become frustrated with herself for caring at all. Feelings rarely announce themselves politely. They sneak into ordinary moments. A message she almost sends, then deletes. A photo she wants to show you, then decides not to. A joke she thinks you'll appreciate first. These are tiny things, almost invisible. Yet emotions often grow inside invisible spaces. There's another moment people rarely notice. When someone begins caring more deeply, your approval starts carrying unexpected weight. Not because they're weak, because we naturally value the opinions of people who matter to us. Imagine she tells a story. Everyone smiles, but before she fully reacts, she looks at you. Just for a second, barely noticeable. She's checking your expression. Did you laugh? Did you understand? Did you think it was silly? That glance can happen without conscious thought. We all do it. Around the people whose opinions have quietly become important. It's such a small movement. Most people never see it. But once you do, you can't unsee it. And then there's jealousy. Not the dramatic kind movies love. The quiet version. The one that hides behind simple questions. Oh, you two know each other. You've been talking a lot lately. I didn't realize she texts you. The words sound casual. Maybe they are. Sometimes they're only curiosity. Sometimes they're nothing at all. But occasionally, something else slips through. Not ownership, not entitlement, just an uncomfortable awareness that someone else now occupies a space she had slowly begun to imagine for herself. Human emotions don't like competition, even when they haven't admitted they're competing. This is where many men make a mistake. They start collecting evidence. Every smile becomes proof. Every message becomes a signal. Every coincidence becomes destiny. Be careful there. Our minds are excellent storytellers. When we want an answer badly enough, we can accidentally write one ourselves. Real emotional maturity isn't about assuming someone has feelings. It's about noticing patterns without forcing conclusions. it leaves room for uncertainty, room for the other person's reality. Because respect matters more than wishful thinking. And strangely enough, that calm patience often creates something powerful. People feel safer around someone who doesn't rush to define every emotion. Safety gives honesty somewhere to land. Which brings us to a moment that almost feels unfair. Because sometimes, the person struggling hardest to hide their feelings ends up revealing them in the smallest, most unforgettable way. And once you notice it, you'll understand why confessions almost never begin with the words, "I like you." The confession people imagine usually sounds dramatic, a late-night phone call, a message that begins with, "I need to tell you something," a trembling voice, a heart poured out all at once. Real life is rarely that tidy. More often, feelings leak out long before they're spoken, not because someone plans it, because emotions have a habit of escaping through the smallest cracks. You might be sitting together, talking about nothing important, a movie, music, some ridiculous story from work. Then she says something ordinary. "You always know how to calm people down." She laughs after saying it, changes the subject, acts like it didn't matter. But it stays with you. Not because the words were romantic, because of the way they were said. Almost too honestly. It's strange how quickly people try to hide after accidentally revealing what they truly notice about someone. I've watched people compliment appearances without feeling deeply attached. And I've watched people quietly admire someone's character long before they admitted they were attracted. There's a difference. One disappears quickly, the other lingers. When someone starts seeing qualities instead of just appearances, patience, kindness, the way you treat a waiter, the way your face changes when you're talking about your parents. Those observations usually come from attention, and attention is valuable. We notice what matters. Not perfectly, not always, but often. That's why a single sincere sentence can carry more emotion than 10 obvious compliments, because it tells you where their eyes have really been. Picture this. You're walking together. Neither of you is saying much. The silence isn't uncomfortable. It's peaceful, almost unexpected. You don't feel pressure to impress. She doesn't seem rushed to fill every quiet second. Then, out of nowhere, she sighs. Not from frustration, from relief. As if for a little while, she doesn't have to perform. She can simply exist. People underestimate moments like that. We spend so much of life trying to be interesting that we forget how rare it is to make someone feel relaxed. Sometimes emotional closeness isn't built through exciting conversations. Sometimes it's built through peaceful silence. And peaceful silence is dangerous. Not in a bad way, in a deeply human way. Because once someone feels emotionally at home with another person, their heart begins imagining what more time together might feel like. That's when things become complicated. You may notice she starts sharing stories she's never told before. Not dramatic secrets, just little pieces of herself. An embarrassing childhood memory, something she regrets, a dream she never says out loud because she's afraid people will laugh. Trust grows like that, quietly, piece by piece. Nobody wakes up one morning deciding to reveal everything. It happens through dozens of tiny moments. One honest sentence, then another, until one day, you realize you've been invited into a part of someone's inner world that very few people ever see. That invitation is easy to miss, because it doesn't arrive wrapped in romance. It arrives disguised as conversation. But here's something that can confuse almost anyone. Sometimes people become more playful just before they become more serious. She teases you, challenges you, pretends to disagree over something meaningless. Not to create conflict, to create connection. Playfulness can be a way of asking a question without asking it directly. Can I be myself around you? Will you understand my sense of humor? Can we create our own little world even for 5 minutes? Not every joke hides affection, of course not. But when playfulness becomes personal, when it starts carrying warmth instead of performance, Something deeper may be growing underneath. Then one day, you notice a pause, a long one. She's about to say something. You can almost see the words forming. Instead, she smiles, looks away, talks about something completely different. You've probably seen that happen and thought nothing of it, but hesitation has its own language. Sometimes people stop speaking because they don't know what they feel. Sometimes because they know exactly what they feel, and they're terrified of changing everything. One sentence can rewrite an entire relationship. Once spoken, it can't be taken back. That realization alone is enough to silence almost anyone. There's another reason confessions get delayed. It isn't fear of rejection, at least not entirely. It's fear of losing what already exists. Imagine finally finding someone who makes you feel understood, someone whose presence feels calm instead of exhausting. Would you risk that? Would you gamble a meaningful connection on one vulnerable sentence? Many people wouldn't. Not immediately. They wait. They watch. They hope the other person notices first. They look for tiny signs that it's safe. Not guaranteed, just safe enough. And that's why, when the truth finally comes out, it often surprises everyone else. Because outsiders only see the confession. They don't see the hundreds of quiet moments that made it almost inevitable. The lingering glances, the unfinished sentences, the growing comfort, the distance that returned and disappeared again. All those invisible threads had already been weaving something neither of them fully understood. And then, one unexpected moment pulls every thread tight. Not with a kiss, not with a dramatic declaration, but with 5 simple words that change the silence forever. It almost never happens when everything is perfect. That's what catches people off guard. You would think someone would wait for the right place, the right mood, the right words. Instead, the truth often slips out on ordinary days. A drive home, a quiet evening, a conversation that was supposed to last 10 minutes but somehow stretches into an hour. Nothing feels different, until it does. Imagine you're talking about completely unrelated things. Maybe you're laughing about something that happened years ago. Maybe you're complaining about how exhausting the week has been. Then the conversation slows. Not awkwardly, just naturally. There's a pause. She looks at you, not quickly this time, long enough that you begin wondering if she's about to say something. She opens her mouth, closes it again, smiles to herself. You almost ask what's wrong. Before you can, she says something that sounds much smaller than what she's actually feeling. I don't know why, but I always feel better after talking to you. It's a simple sentence. Most people would hear it and move on. But emotions don't always introduce themselves with dramatic words. Sometimes they arrive disguised as gratitude. Sometimes they wear the clothes of friendship because that's safer. Because once you call something feelings, it suddenly becomes real. And reality asks for courage. One thing I've noticed is that people rarely confess because they suddenly become brave. More often, they confess because hiding becomes more exhausting than speaking. Think about carrying a secret every day, watching someone smile without knowing whether they understand what that smile does to you, pretending your heart isn't beating a little faster every time your phone lights up with their name, laughing at your own feelings, trying to reason with them, trying to outgrow them. Eventually, that emotional weight becomes heavy, not unbearable, just heavy enough. Heavy enough that silence starts costing more than honesty. And that's usually where everything changes. Not because certainty appears, because the person simply can't carry the question alone anymore. But before those words ever come out, there is often one final test. Not a game, not manipulation, just a quiet search for safety. She might ask something that sounds casual. Do you think age really matters? Or, have you ever liked someone you weren't expecting to like? Interesting questions, aren't they? Notice how they don't mention her, or you. They create just enough distance to protect her if the answer hurts. People do this all the time. We talk about ourselves through imaginary situations, through movies, through someone I know, through jokes, anything that makes vulnerability feel a little less exposed. Because direct honesty can feel overwhelming. Indirect honesty feels survivable. If you answer with kindness instead of assumptions, something important happens. You give the conversation room to breathe. You don't rush to label it. You don't force an outcome. You simply listen. That sounds so ordinary, yet it's surprisingly rare. Many people hear only the words they want to hear. Very few hear the emotion underneath them. Sometimes what another person needs isn't an immediate answer. It's the feeling that they won't be embarrassed for being honest. Safety doesn't guarantee a confession, but without safety, many confessions never happen at all. Then comes the moment people remember for years, not because it's loud, because it's almost unbelievably quiet. She takes a deeper breath than usual, looks away, laughs nervously, shakes her head as if she's already talking herself out of it, and then, almost under her breath, "I probably shouldn't tell you this." That sentence carries more emotion than most love stories, because inside it lives uncertainty, hope, fear, excitement. The possibility of losing something precious, and the possibility of finding something even greater. She's standing between two futures, one where nothing changes, one where everything does. Neither feels completely safe. If you've ever been on the receiving end of a moment like that, you probably remember something surprising. It wasn't the words, it was your own heartbeat. The room suddenly felt quieter. Time slowed down. You became painfully aware of every tiny movement. Her hands, her eyes, the silence between each sentence. Our minds remember emotional moments differently, not because they're magical, because attention becomes incredibly focused. Everything else disappears. Only that conversation exists, only those few seconds. And yet, even after hearing a confession, many men make one final mistake. They think the story is over, as if the hardest part was saying, "I have feelings for you." In reality, those words are often the beginning, not the ending. Because now two people have to answer a much deeper question. Not whether feelings exist, but whether those feelings can survive real life. And strangely enough, that's where the most honest emotions finally reveal who they really are. Most people believe the confession is the finish line. The music swells, two people smile, everything finally makes sense. Real life doesn't usually work that way. In many cases, the confession is simply the moment when two people stop hiding from the same truth. What comes after that is quieter, and in some ways, more meaningful. Because feelings are easy to imagine. Living with them is something else entirely. Imagine the morning after. Nothing dramatic has happened, the world hasn't changed, people are still rushing to work, coffee still gets cold if you forget about it, your phone still buzzes with ordinary notifications. But somewhere inside you, something feels different. You replay her words, not because you're trying to analyze them, because they don't quite feel real yet. Did she really say that? You read the message again, or remember the look on her face. Not the words, the look. Because sometimes eyes tell the truth before voices can catch up. She may feel the same uncertainty. People often imagine that confessing brings instant relief. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it brings a whole new kind of vulnerability. Now she wonders what you'll think tomorrow, whether things will become awkward, whether you'll start treating her differently, whether she revealed too much. It's interesting. The courage to speak doesn't erase the fear of being misunderstood. It simply proves that the connection mattered enough to risk it. That's what courage often looks like. Not the absence of fear, just choosing honesty while fear is still sitting beside you. If the feelings are mutual, there's another temptation. To rush, to define everything immediately, to answer questions neither person has had time to explore. But meaningful relationships often grow the same way meaningful friendships do, through consistency. Small promises kept, respect shown repeatedly, comfort that deepens instead of fading. The strongest emotional connections are rarely built from one unforgettable moment. They're built from hundreds of ordinary ones. Checking in after a difficult day, remembering something small that mattered, listening without trying to fix everything, laughing over jokes nobody else would understand. Those moments don't usually become stories people tell, yet they're the moments people miss most when someone is gone. And if those feelings aren't shared, that doesn't automatically make the confession a mistake. This is something I wish more people believed. Being honest with kindness is not failure. Sometimes two good people simply stand in different places emotionally. That hurts, of course it does. But honesty given with respect still has dignity. It allows both people to stop guessing, to stop living inside imagined conversations, to move forward with clarity instead of endless what-ifs. There is pain in rejection, but there can also be peace in finally knowing. Uncertainty has a way of stretching heartache much longer than truth does. Maybe that's why these moments stay with us for years. Not because every confession leads to love, because every sincere confession reminds us of something deeply human. We all want to be seen, not admired from a distance, not idealized, seen for our flaws, our awkward pauses, the parts of ourselves we usually edit before anyone else notices. When someone says, in one way or another, "I see you, and somehow I still feel this way," that's powerful. Not because it guarantees forever, because for one honest moment, neither person is pretending. If you're listening to this while wondering whether someone's quiet actions mean more than their words, be patient. Notice patterns, not isolated moments. Stay curious instead of certain. Leave room for another person's reality, even when your own hopes feel strong. Sometimes the answer you're waiting for arrives softly, not with perfect timing, not with perfect confidence, just with enough honesty to change the direction of two lives. And sometimes, the most unforgettable confession isn't, "I've fallen for you." It's the sentence that comes just before it, the one whispered almost as if it wasn't meant to be heard. "I've been trying not to feel this." Because hidden inside those few words is something every person longs for at least once in their life. The quiet relief of no longer carrying their heart alone. And perhaps that's why, long after the conversation ends, long after the silence returns, one thought keeps echoing in your mind. Not whether love is certain, but how extraordinary it is when someone finds the courage to let you see the truth they spent so long trying to hide.